Welcome to the challenge of the day. Practice responding, not reacting. Have you ever found it difficult to hold your tongue and not lash out during some conversations? Or have you ever experienced a conversation turn into an argument because it was emotionally charged? Do you experience frustrations or anger at yourself when this occurs? Or do you ever tell yourself that really wasn't the ideal way to communicate around this topic? So often in communication, when our emotions get the best of us, something triggers us, it results in our not being able to express ourselves clearly, calmly, or effectively. This creates the likelihood a person will react instead of respond, shifting the focus and energy from the topic at hand to their negative emotional state of being, which means the communication comes to a halt. So many times, our emotional reactions are the result of our interpretations of what is happening to us and around us. That is not to say that our emotional response isn't warranted, isn't valid. It's simply saying that our emotional reactions are a result of the lens or the perspective through which we see the things that are going on and taking place around us and to us. Remember, the way we communicate is as important as the language we use, both verbal and nonverbal. And you instantly create either a connection or disconnection with those around you as a result. So when you find yourself at the crossroads of reaction versus response, when you're communicating, it is so important to just slow down, pause, and take a breath before saying or doing anything. Give yourself the opportunity to process. Take just a couple of seconds. It can make all the difference. So that brings us to today's challenge. I want you to choose a topic of conversation that triggers an emotional response within you. And you might be thinking, wow, that's pretty heavy. It might be, but today we're going deep. We're going to do the work to be a badass communicator. Then I want you to imagine having a conversation with a person that views this topic differently. And I want you to act out the conversation verbally and don't hold back. But remember, imagine having a conversation with another person so that you are free to freely express your emotions and your true being, both verbally and with your nonverbal cues. And then I want you to make sure that you record the conversation so that you can play it back and see your verbal and nonverbal language, your body language, the inflection in your voice, the tone of your voice, your facial expressions. All of it is so important. Remember, the goal of the challenge is to practice responding, not reacting. So disclaimer, this challenge is probably best practiced solo. If you choose to enlist the help of another human, you do so at your own risk. I want you to play back your recording and really make notes about what you see, hear, and feel. This is such an important part of the process. And then we're going to deep dive. I want you to ask yourself these questions and be honest. Be vulnerable. Be true to yourself and answer these questions truthfully. Get deep. First, what was the topic that emotionally triggered my being? What is my emotional reaction to this situation or conversation? And why? What is it about this topic or this situation or this conversation that is emotionally triggering me to want to have such a strong emotional reaction? What am I telling myself about this topic or the imagined other person in the conversation that is creating this reaction? Really dive into that. And what else is going on that I'm not acknowledging? And why? Remember, everything we do is through our lens, our perspective, our interpretation of what's going on and happening around us and to us. How else could I handle being emotionally triggered? We all have communication patterns and habits. So take a look at what other possibilities there might be for how you can handle being emotionally triggered in situations or conversations. And how can I respond, not react, when I'm faced with this type of conversation in order to keep the lines of communication open? Because we know when we are responding from an emotional, reactive space, we shift the energy, we shift the focus to that emotion, to that behavior, and not to the conversation at hand. And so we lose sight of what we are trying to discuss that is so important to us and so many others. Today's challenge is to practice the art of responding, not reacting, so that you can navigate these difficult conversations and communications with empathy and compassion and grace. When we are not connected with our spiritual self, a part of our heart and spirit feel heavy and become consumed with negativity. This can impact how we approach difficult or emotionally charged conversations. Anytime you question or experience a conflict with your values, your goals, your beliefs, a negative energy can well up in your mind and in your body, impacting every conversation you have with others. Just as you were asked to do in the challenge, I want you to begin paying attention and becoming acutely aware of how you are having difficult conversations and its impact on your use of verbal and nonverbal clues, cues, and body language, your inflection, the tone of your voice, the energy behind it. All of it is so important, and we must begin to pay attention to how we show up in our conversations. Start recognizing anytime you are feeling triggered in conversation and be open to exploring the root cause. You want to be able to shift your habits and your patterns so that they serve you best. Don't shame or guilt yourself for your reactions versus your responses. Instead, accept that it's occurring. Feel your feelings. Always be forgiving and compassionate with yourself. And just commit to uncovering and resolving why it's happening. Make the conscious choice to practice responding and not reacting. Remember, no issue can be resolved from the same level of thinking that created it. It's up to you to shape your perspective and shift your energy so that the lines of communication stay open and available. It is just as important to see and hear others as it is to be seen and heard. So completing today's challenge will amplify your growth in leadership and communication. You are becoming a badass communicator.